welcome to The Complex, where we discuss all things related to the operations of multifamily assets. Joining me today is Gray Residential's own Jay Powell for a riveting, or at least honest, discussion about maintenance. It's something that I think every operator talks about. We don't necessarily talk about it in a real positive light. It's kind of a pain point, but at Gray here, we are really fortunate to have an expert. And so, the conversations that we have and have had over the years, I think are important for everyone to hear. So I'm really excited to have him here today. I did just refer to him as Jay Powell because I thought that was funny. But it's Joe Powell. Joe, you bring a multifaceted perspective to your role here at Gray. You are an investor in multifamily assets. You have a 26-year career in facilities operations, renovations, new construction, value add, really every property type that exists. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to you now and do the obligatory verbal biography of who Joe Powell is, how you started in the field, maybe some information about your first job because you have good stories there. Let's go.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast and speak to those out there that are dealing with these issues like we do, dealing with them maybe for the first time or dealing with them for the hundredth time. So yeah. I don't feel like we're going to reinvent the wheel today, but maybe some of the things that we discuss are, going to be able to help you navigate through, the situations that you're having with your teams, or just give you a fresh perspective, or give you two people that are going through the exact same thing that you are. So,
and the beauty of, I think, our, this show is the fact that, you have done every possible role. So it's not like when you're talking to us that it's, from a single perspective. It's not always from the executive or the owner perspective. Like, you bring a perspective of the, grounds person, or what's below grounds person. How did you start?
If you could imagine the lowest man on the totem pole, lowest person on the totem pole, you'd assume groundskeeper. But for me, I was the guy that had to make sure that the groundskeeper was ready for work today, that his bucket was clean and that his picker worked. I had to make sure that the painters had paint, and I had to make sure their buckets were cleaned out. Like, I started underneath the bottom, but with that, it helped me grow, because as I started to ascend up the ladder, I was able to relate to every position underneath me and know how that person was feeling while they were doing the work that they were expected to do. So you're able to empathize, sympathize, you're able to relate and say, yeah, I know it's terrible, but if we just get it done, we can move on to something better. You got this,
Which I think that's the blessing and the curse of, you do know, but then on the flip side of that, like, what they have time for, what those capabilities are. Like, I think it's very two-sided what you bring to the table. But I know for a fact that you started below the grounds person, but like, what did you do before maintenance that why is it that maintenance looked appealing?
It's hard to even remember. It's hard to remember a before maintenance because 26 years, it's more than half my life. So a huge portion of my life has been here. But before I was even introduced to maintenance, I didn't even know I was in it. I was working in the food service industry, making $5.10 an hour when a friend of mine said, "Hey man, I know where we can go and cut grass for these apartments for $7.75." And I was like, "What are we doing here? Let's get out of here. Let's go right now." And he's like, "No, we gotta wait till our shift's over." So smart. Just in case we didn't get the job, we still needed the
right.
ones we were currently employed by. So glad one of us was thinking, but. Yeah, we interviewed, got the jobs, cut grass for a summer, and then the summer went away. It was time to start laying people off, seasonal workers. And I had gotten used to 775, 40 plus hours a week, getting paid every Friday, and I couldn't go back to 5 and a dime. It wasn't a possibility. So the apartment complexes that we were cutting were all the Indianapolis Housing Agency apartments. And so while we're out there in the yards cutting and weed eating and trimming and mulching, we see these guys in the blue uniforms running around with tool bags and, obviously fixing things now. I look back and I'm like, oh, they're fixing things. Were they? Possibly. They look the part.
Okay.
And so at the end of the year, I looked at my supervisor and I'm like, Jeff, I can't go back to fast food. I can't go back to the food service industry. I just can't. I got a little boy on the way, and look, I want to do what those guys, back there. I want one of those blue shirts. I want to do what they're doing. And he's like, what are they doing? I don't know what they're doing, but whatever they're doing, none of them are talking about being laid off. So I want to do that.
Yeah.
And, long story short, I get my, first opportunity. He sends me out to 5349 Butler Terrace at Hawthorne Apartments.
Wow. Remember the address. That's impressive.
After 26 years, I remember the first apartment that I punched for a couple of reasons. For one, that was the first time, it's the first time anyone ever believed in me or looked at me as if I could do something that I myself didn't even think or know that I could do, for one. And two, I remember it because it took me about 3 weeks from start to finish to punch this apartment.
That's ridiculous.
My supervisor actually
You should be fired if it takes you 3 weeks to do a punch. No,
my
I'm
supervisor at the time, Kenny Maxey, came to me and said, boy, if you in here one more day, I'm going to have to charge you rent. So I'm like, okay, so what's the fix? Because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm chasing my tail. He helped me through it, and fast forward 26 years, and there was a lot in between. But fast forward 26 years, and here I am, director of maintenance for Gray Residential. That's
I would imagine there's a lot of funny stories like that, and also there's probably other techs out there that we've just sort of like set loose and been like, go punch an apartment with this expectation that they know exactly what that means. And then we're over here fussing that they're, taking too long. But it's like, if someone doesn't tell you and teach you and help you, like, how can you ever possibly get better? And I think that that's part of our issue. Is that fair to say that, it's like, where are the teachers and where are the mentors? And, what is the reason that, whether it's right now or whether it's been brewing for a while, how is it that we do as operators? And I'm not saying my teams specifically or any team that I've worked with specifically. I'm going to say this in like a very generalized manner, but like, why is it that leaders in the industry are constantly talking about how we don't have skilled labor? Why do you think that's the case?
I would say that there's a few things that go with that. First of all, how did you get yourself into a situation where you need skilled labor, where you need the labor force that you have to have more skills? Well, think about where our punch people come from. Our punch techs yesterday were groundskeepers. And then the punch guy that was there moved on to another property or moved up to a supervisor or whatever the reason. And then we're just like, next man up. Yesterday you were picking up trash and emptying pet stations and pulling weeds.
Next person up.
Yeah. I still have to work on that. But yesterday I was doing groundskeeping work, and today you're just dropping me into a punch and saying you should be able to get this done in a couple of hours. And the person saying, get what done? Like, I don't have any tools. No one's ever taught me how to make a drywall repair.
Yeah.
And then so this person is untrained, unskilled, and then we're complaining that they're not putting up the numbers. How
many techs out there do you think get a side-by-side walkthrough with and not just one? Like, nobody learns in sort of like one moment. I had a leader, a mentor one time that said, training is an event, or is a process, not an event. So it's like, how many people do you think even get the benefit of someone like you or someone that's learned the right way, if that's a thing. I think it is actually, done a walkthrough multiple times. Like, I don't think we do that. I don't think we give it that kind of attention.
I would say you're right.
Who taught you to do a punch? The guy that said one more day and you're charging you rent?
Yeah, I mean, he was a big factor in it because he needed to get somebody, as we say in the industry, heads in the beds. We weren't making any money. It was almost a month of no income on that unit, and it was my fault. So, I was able to work alongside him. He probably did the lion's share of the work in there, and I did the lambs, also watching while he did the lion's share, and started to formulate a general idea of how I would want to attack it. But yeah, it took, I made a lot of mistakes, trial and error was a lot of the ways to.
I've heard you say though, people didn't want to teach you. No. Explain that.
Okay. So, when I entered the industry, I was 18 years old. I was what I would consider, I did and think I am still intelligent. I was faster than most. I was 18. I was a teenager, and the next youngest person was 38, and then everyone else was 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so they're looking at a person like me and saying, this guy, if he's faster than me, if he's younger than me, if he's more agile, if he's all of these things, the only thing I have on him is this level of skill that he doesn't have. And so they would, like you could see them not trying to train. It was obvious that they didn't want to train me if they weren't designated Joe's supervisor or trainer, like just my peer-to-peer. They weren't trying to pass those skills down because and it could be my own interpretation of the situation, but it felt like, well, they just thought he's going to put me out of a job, I don't know where their heads
Which
were
is
at.
wild, right?
There's more than enough work for all of us.
There's definitely more than enough work. It's like, it's sad because I like to think industry wide that, really it is weighted more on a lot of people with a lot of knowledge that would like to share it. But it's like this, environment where we are constantly pushing because no one's pulling. And I would say I like to think, and if my first manager was here or listening, I would hope that she would say the same thing. Like I was a nuisance because of the questions I was asking. I was a nuisance probably because I wanted to know maybe more than I was ready for in those moments. I wish I had some of that or more of that, or I wish I heard more operators talk about that. And, it's like, and I think on the office side, they're probably, a little bit better about raising their hand and asking for help. But on the maintenance side,
we don't do that often. It's not as easy.
Why?
Well, I can speak for myself personally in times in my life and maybe for other people based on my observations of them, but sometimes it's a pride thing. If you raise your hand and you say, hey, I could use some help over here, you're admitting you don't know how to do something, or you don't know how to do something as well as you should for efficiency or whatever it may, whatever the scale is.
I think it means you're admitting you want to do it right. I think asking a question means you're admitting that you want to do it right.
But you're also admitting that you don't know how to do it right. If you want to do it right, then you just would. If you're raising your hand and saying, hey, I'd like to do this right, it's because you realize you don't know how. And that hits a person in their pride, and no one wants to raise their hand and say, I don't know anything. Again, go back to the groundskeeper who was a groundskeeper yesterday and today. He's this tech is now a punch tech. Okay, now someone gave you the title punch tech. Do you want to raise your hand in front of all your peers and your supervisor and say, I don't know how to punch an apartment? No, you don't. It's like when you become lead service tech. There were probably things about your character, about your work ethic, about the way you can schedule, organize, and manage your time. Those things as a entry-level tech may have been visible to your supervisor who said, I want to make this person a lead tech. But you go into being a lead tech, no one has an expectation that on day one of being the lead tech, you're the best tech on the planet. No, you have growth and development that still needs to happen.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say, I don't know how to do something, because it would appear someone gave you a job based on the fact that they think you should know how to do it. Now, you should have some idea.
Right.
You should be close enough to where, you know, you're not given a position that you absolutely have no way of ever learning how to you know, how to figure it out and do it. But yeah, there's no expectation that you know everything on day one. So raise your hand and ask for help.
I think there's got to be some communication failures and breakdowns then, because like and yeah, okay, some of it is pride. Some of it too is that we're like, yep, you're ready. Here we go. I mean, it would be hard to, or it might feel defiant, if you will, to be like, look, I know you said that I'm ready, and I am ready to learn, but here are the things. And, you know, I'm sure some companies out there have some really great, you know, written down plans for how they put someone in training and move forward. But I would also bet you that they have thrown some of that out the window in the last half a decade or more, you know, when it comes to needing to fill the position and having someone right there. Like, are you really going to say, well, I'm not promoting you until you have all your stamps, or whatever it is, like you've gone through the checklist or the, you know, in training. I just think like there's some failures on our side too. We should be just saying and being transparent and saying, look, we're hiring you for this role because we think you have the ability to do it, not that you have it today.
Well, you just said a cuss word. You just said a word that's just so offensive.
What?
That checklist. Oh my God. I mean, who wants one of those?
Some people love a checklist.
You know
some
what?
People like it. It is a path to success. It is not a checklist. It is a pathway to success.
I think that it's amazing when you say that, and I wish everyone could look at it that way, because really, in theory, it is. But so often we have, you know, checklist, and you know, you walk an apartment, the property manager or whoever, the maintenance supervisor, walks an apartment for, you know, to give it the final check of this unit is market ready. And then there's a list of 2, 3, 4 things that got missed. And you ask yourself, well, how did these things get missed? Where's the checklist? Let me see who, oh, we didn't have a checklist. Why? Part of training is training someone to use a checklist. So, you know, we talk about, you know, training for skill, you know, training in skilled trades and things like that, but also the basics. Like if you train someone to use a checklist every time they punch an apartment, those 4 or 5 things that they miss go down to 1 or 2, and maybe it starts to average 0 to 1.
Right, because at that point they know exactly what to do. So if they aren't doing it, then they're choosing not to do it.
It's hard to get 100% on a test when you can't see the questions or answers.
True.
You just can't. You know, if you have a checklist of 20 things and you do all 20 things, what's your score? Probably an A.
Yeah.
If you don't have a checklist, then you just walk around and you start out in the bedroom, and then you run to the kitchen, you run to the bathroom, you're all over the place. You never finish anything. Then someone says, well, if you're in here one more day, I'm going to have to charge you rent.
Charge you rent.
So you just say, I'm done.
I'm just like thinking back to my history though too, and I'm just, you know, there's probably some other things that we do where we put, you know, barriers in. Like I'm sure that at some point someone from the administrative side has said, well, there is a checklist and it's in the share drive, and then, you know, the maintenance person saying, well, wait a minute, I don't even know how to access that, or I didn't get, you know, the same credentials. Like, you know, it's like we expect the same. We accept this very like level playing field in terms of like access to information and the way that, you know, we need to communicate tasks, but it's probably a completely different, I think we could argue it's a completely different mindset of someone that's working in maintenance versus, you know, maybe a leasing associate. And we should probably stop acting like, not to say that we have to treat everyone differently, but you know, we are at this place where it's like, what do we need to get done, and how do we like come back and focus on just like get the punch done? And I think the checklists in like facilities, you know, management apps, you know, they're all great, but I don't know. I think there's also probably a piece of it where if we would focus as much on training as we did on like the tech to make someone say that they did the work, like maybe we would be winning. I think the training piece is what is horribly, horribly missing and underserved on the maintenance side. Fair to say?
Fair to say. And lately we just call contractors. We just call contractors and
Yeah,
punch the
let's
apartments.
talk about that.
Like,
Because
how
I'm
are we going
sure
to get
that's-
these 5 units done before next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Call the contractor.
Call the contractor. Call the contractor. Call the contractor. And that is... I mean, you said I said a cuss word earlier. Like you said a cuss word,
I just said
but
a
not
cuss
really.
word.
I think there's a complacency on behalf of, owners, managers, where they are just like, look, I just have to get it. I just have to get it done. This person hasn't had, air conditioning for, 3 weeks. I just have to get it done. And like, part of me is like, okay, but what happened on day 2? Like, did you have someone to call? Did you have someone? But then that means somebody has to call.
You don't always have a resource to call for some of that stuff as well. So like a company that has a director of maintenance that's able to pick up the phone and answer the call and be a resource, that's a big deal. Not every company has one of those.
Like a hotline.
Sometimes I feel like
Maybe
a
you
hotline. I pick up the phone.
Please don't leave Gray, but maybe you should start a hotline. No, I saw a survey on somebody posted on Revise the other day, and it said it was like, what do maintenance people really want? It was like 44%, which was the highest of all the options, said they want real-time maintenance support, which is like, I think I told you about it, and you were like, well, yeah, because if we're not taking the training that's being offered and we're not raising our hand, we're not learning, so we're not being proactive. So yeah, of course, in the moment,
they just want someone to tell them what to do.
Yeah,
that's a way of training, but that's long division. You're never gonna learn anything. Because the odds that the next time you have to call me, it's the exact same thing, that you're getting this repetition of practice, the odds are slim. So the next time you call me, if you don't start to learn to figure and understand sequence of operations and why we do things the way we do, just me saying, hey, connect the red wire to the blue wire and then turn it back on, that's not helping you. So as I am 100% game on as far as answering the phone and helping you through a jam, I want to be able to provide training that gets you off the phone with me and on the phone with the guys that you work with and the people that you work with and those underneath you. You should be answering those questions for them based on the fact that you've been trained. We use contractors and we don't love it. At our level, we don't love it up here.
Well, we don't love it when we believe that there's another way, a more economical way to do it.
I was getting to that. And,
all right.
And before I hurt any of my partners' feelings, I greatly appreciate and respect the partnerships that I've developed over the years with my HVAC contractors, my restoration contractors.
How does someone go from vendor to partner? What's the difference?
From vendor to partner. That's a good one.
Because you said vendor partner, but I mean, how does somebody go from just a vendor, like a transactional situation, to a partnership?
Well, for one, the best way to become a vendor for us is to follow the Gray Report and follow Katrina's podcast. You have to do those two things first, and then you become a vendor. Once you become a vendor, great communication, fair pricing, being able to be flexible.
Let's talk about fair pricing for 1 second.
All right.
Because we had a situation recently. I'm not going to identify anything specific, but like some vendors are not charging fair pricing because they know that there's no one on the other side that knows what fair pricing is. We just saw it happen, and then they got their feelings hurt when you kind of stopped and said, no.
Yeah. And, that could have been the beginning of a great partnership, but instead, we no longer use that vendor anymore. I've had vendors where, we just recently acquired a property and, there was some deferred maintenance. There were some residents that...
What? Deferred maintenance? During a takeover? Come on.
I'm just making up
Wild.
stuff. I'm creating words out of thin air. Who has deferred maintenance? But no, we had... there was a pending estimate for 6 HVAC system replacements. And each of these were close to $7,000 a piece. And I was able to fix 5 of the 6, and only one of them actually had to be replaced, and we did that in-house.
How much were what I know you did it, but like there's still a cost associated with it. How much was
a cost.
Like how much were the parts approximately, if you don't, how much were the parts?
We probably fixed the 5 with under $500 worth of parts. One part was like a $250 blower motor. So the rest of them were, one we fixed with a couple dollars worth of Schrader valves and a bump of refrigerant, and it was back up and running. So like,
let's sit with that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So $6,900 is the quote from the contractor.
Correct.
You have site teams, or in this case, it was lacking. We didn't have maintenance yet, so there's this like moment where there's somebody that's submitting an estimate to a property manager. And no offense to property managers in general, I lump myself in this place too, where like I can sound like I know what I'm talking about, and I can like nod and not look glazed over, but I really don't know. I know some of the questions to ask.
It's hard to know, like, if you don't do the work, you can't look at an estimate and say, well, they're wrong.
No, not on paper. Well, you can say it's wrong to charge X
Right.
amount because you know how much the part costs. So you could say that.
In theory, I can say that. Yes.
Right. In theory, you can say that. So $6,900 for at least a couple of these that you fixed with a $2 part.
Mm-hmm. And a little bit of refrigerant, but still, the amount of the refrigerant, we were nowhere near
minor.
We were nowhere near $6,000 or $7,000, and so.
I'm not picking on AC companies.
No.
We just came out of AC.
They serve a purpose. We just came out of
AC season. What in the world? I mean, that is like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the equivalent. Like taking your car in. I might have wrecked my car a little bit last week. It's minor. I just whipped a UE somewhere that I shouldn't have. But I mean, that's like me taking it in, for a repair, and them just being like, ma'am, you should just buy a new car.
Exactly.
That's what that feels like. And it happens over and over again across the country every day because our own maintenance teams don't know how to say, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem right.
Well, in the situation where you don't have maintenance, you don't have anyone saying, we shouldn't do that because it's not necessary. We really only need to do A, B, and C.
But they're certified techs, Joe.
Well,
they're certified.
And you know what? Look, we are certified techs. We are EPA certified techs. I teach EPA through the Apartment Association, and one of the first things I tell my students when we get in there and we're doing our introductory, I tell them, if you put your pens down, don't try to write down everything I say today. Just listen.
Do they try to write down
They
everything?
do. And when I'm saying words
so
like
sweet.
chlorofluorocarbons, and as fast as I speak sometimes, like you could never write down all of that stuff. So mainly just listen, absorb it, take your test, and get your certification. And once you get it, you become the most dangerous man on the property, the most dangerous person on the property. And they all their eyes get bright like, what? What do you mean? Well, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get your certification card, and you're going to run back and you're going to show your manager, and she's going to blow it up and print it and put it in the newsletter, and everybody's going to celebrate. And then she's going to hand you 10 AC work orders and say, all right, get busy. And in the 5-hour training course that you took with me in order to get your EPA certification, not one time did we discuss any piece of troubleshooting. How to figure out why the system's not working. That's not what the EPA is about. EPA is about learning the laws regarding how we handle refrigerant, how we reclaim, recycle, recover, how we find leaks and how much it can leak before we have to repair it. You're learning, you're getting a certificate so that you can handle refrigerant. Doesn't mean you know how to fix air conditioners. Handle refrigerant. Fix an air conditioner.
We have to stop talking about it and calling it HVAC certified. That's not true. And that's unfair on both sides, like in the situation that you gave where we're like, okay, here's your 10 work orders, go fix them. And then we're frustrated, and then on the flip side of that, like just because you're EPA certified doesn't mean that you have this like just outrageous worth now. But I do know companies that pay more for people that are EPA certified under the guise of some kind of skill. And it's not. You took a test. You nailed it.
I don't think that's a bad thing. But
what?
they're
paying extra more
for someone who took the time to get certified.
Sure. Okay.
Yes, you should.
Fair.
You should applaud that. You should maybe give some kind of a little bump or bonus or whatever. But that person, after I tell them they're dangerous, I tell them, humble yourself and go find a good leader, a mentor, someone that you know is doing it right, and you shadow them.
Yeah.
If it takes extra time, if you got to come in on a Saturday morning to make up 2 or 3 hours worth of work because on a Thursday, I know here I am making up stuff again. Overtime.
Stop
what is
saying,
that?
Oh, yeah, overtime.
Who does that?
Or more work, or yeah.
I know, but here's the thing.
We're clearly being facetious because, on one hand, people are like, I don't have time.
I've had people tell me, Joe, I'm more of a 35 to 40 hour a week person, not like a 40 to 45. And I'm just thinking, you gotta give me at least 40.
you gotta do the work. You gotta at least kind of do whatever it takes.
You gotta put in the work. But most of the people that have elevated themselves to supervisors who are lifers in this industry, that's made their way to regional, that's up at a director. Those are the guys that probably did sacrifice and say, look, I'm going to shadow you today. I want to watch you put that HVAC system in, and I will come in on Saturday because none of this work that I have to do is detrimental or is going to keep a resident from moving in, but it still needs to be done. I'll come in on Saturday, or I'll volunteer some, whatever it may be. Yeah. I'll make a sacrifice. I'll make the effort to get my work done, but I want to learn how to do what you're doing correctly. And that's how it was when I was, that type of attitude separates where you are from where you want to be. If where you want to be is right where you're at, continue doing the same thing. But if you want to ascend up the ladder, up the chain, if you want to get to the top, you have to make sacrifices. You have to say, I'm willing to get the training. I'm willing to raise my hand. I'm willing to say, hey, Joe, I don't know that. And then, get the training, get the knowledge.
I don't think you have to get any training to go up the ladder on the maintenance side. I don't. I think that you should. I think if you're smart and if you want a long-term future and if you want to feel good every day about your work, and if the top is a position like yours, or if the top is, maybe being a supervisor still at a site, but living, this like great life where things are working and you feel accomplished and you have some disposable income, and maybe you just have I don't know. You don't have to be gaining skill to move up in this business on the maintenance side whatsoever. So then it's dangerous because they do go from grounds to tech to supervisor.
It is.
And now you have them as supervisor.
It is dangerous.
Now they're leading others.
And
can't teach them.
That's frightening. Because you say leading others. In order to lead, you have to be a leader. And it takes leadership training and takes leadership ability. And if we can't even get the basic training of maintenance, leadership training is difficult because the hardest thing about any job is the people. Period.
Yeah, being called a property manager is kind of misleading.
It's if all you had to manage was a property.
So easy.
It'd be so easy. The property just stands there.
It doesn't live. It doesn't breathe.
People pay you to live in it. Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
It would be great.
Yeah,
but
that's misleading at this point. It's really more of like a. Actually, I have a manager that said this recently. Like I'm a business manager. I'm not a property manager. Not really a full people manager. Although you have to manage people. Like we're managing a business. Truthfully,
we are. It's not easy.
But on the leadership side, I mean, honestly, it was just the last year or two that there was leadership training specifically geared towards maintenance personnel. And I know that you were part of that,
absolutely,
bringing that to the table. Talk about that a little bit.
That was I believe, 5 course. I believe each course was like maybe 3 hours. And we met like once a month. for 5 months, 4 months. And then at the very end, we had a big round table discussion to go over all the things that we learned. This was through the Apartment Association, Indiana Apartment Association. It was called the Maintenance Leadership Toolkit. And it was put on by Tom Meyer. It was great.
I'm going to have Tom on the show. I already asked him.
Yeah.
He said, yes, Tom, you're up. You're coming
up,
soon.
He's great, relatable. I've witnessed Tom in the executive level, and I've witnessed him on the floor, for lack of a better term, but out on the floor with the team. Yeah. And relatable, made sense. But was
it well attended in your view?
It was. There were, I want to say, 18 to 20 physical people in the classroom, because it was hybrid, and then there were people in virtual land, as we call it, but there were a handful. It was well attended. All maintenance,
Okay.
all maintenance, and I believe probably mainly supervisors, but there may have been a couple of techs that were on the cusp of becoming a supervisor. Maybe they had to, go through that course in order to get it, whatever the situation was. But it was great. It was step by step. It was so basic, but so necessary. Sometimes we look at, oftentimes when you don't know something, we fear the unknown. And if no one's ever told you are a leader, or you know how to be a leader, then your mind says, I don't necessarily think, I don't know if I know how to be a leader. And if you don't know, you fear it. You're just like, oh my God, what does it really take? A lot of us have these traits about us. We just don't know. And so,
Such as? Can you give some examples? On the spot? Sorry.
Yeah, you just put me on the spot.
I guess I'm just wondering, especially, for, an operator or vendor or manager that might be listening to this, like, what is it that we're getting so horribly wrong about how to, support our maintenance teams? And I don't mean support like coddle, because I actually think that we're enabling a lot of behavior under the guise of like, well, I don't want to be stuck with no one or whatever. Well, you're hiring contractors anyway. What do you care?
Right.
Like, and I don't mean to say that we don't care about the humans. We absolutely do. But like, what are we getting so wrong on our side in terms of the way that we support maintenance and just look at maintenance? Like, what are we doing?
Well, one thing that I learned in the course, one thing that stood out was, as a leader, my job is to give you feedback. What we never...
Ouch.
Yeah, I know. That's another one of those things. Feedback, what's that?
Cuss word.
Yeah, so my job as a leader is to give you feedback. And one thing that I know I have 100% never done was ask someone that works with me or under me, someone that I am tasked with giving feedback. I never ask them, how do you best receive feedback? Because you're going to get it. I just need to know what way works, what is the best way for me to deliver it to you, so that I'm not saying, here's what I see when I look at you and your work. Yeah. And you're saying, I'm never appreciated. Oh my God, all they do is come down on me. No, my job is to make you better. So when you're doing great, my job is to come in and give you an attaboy and say you're doing a great job. Yeah. When you're not doing well, my job is to come in and correct what's wrong so that you can get back on the right path to getting those kudos and those accolades. Like, my job is to make you better. Yeah. I need to know how best to do that. And so sometimes
is that in a general sense, part of what we aren't doing, we aren't asking, we aren't talking to maintenance, we aren't saying, I don't want to say like, what do you need? But do we just treat it totally differently, even from the interview process on?
I think it starts with a conversation, like early in life. Our parents have to give us feedback. They have to be able to chastise us. They have to be able to teach us how to do the right thing. And it has to become second nature. They can't be with us every moment of every day saying, now, you shouldn't do that. At some point, we have to know these things, and that comes from making decisions, sometimes great, sometimes not so great, and in those not so greats, we get a little feedback from that. So if we started, like in the onboarding process, you said, you will get feedback. How best do you receive that? And you figure it out, and in the training, and I can't just, I'm sure there's copyright stuff, so I'd have to draw my own circles.
No,
and
Tom's going to be on the show. This is great. This is going to be the perfect way to
until he
lead
signs
into
off,
his.
I might have to draw my own circles and bubbles. But he has a really great diagram for this. And so when you have this diagram in front of you and you're able to say, well, this seems like the best way that I'm going to be able to take, once you establish that, then that needs to be normal and regular so as to not surprise someone just by walking in and, you onboarded, and then 4.5 months later, someone walks in and says, man, I've been looking over your numbers and you haven't punched an apartment within the right frame of time yet. Like, why did it take so long for you to come and fix me?
Yeah.
And then if you're not within that diagram on how you deliver that feedback, that person's going to run down the street for another 50 cents or $1 on the hour, because he's going to say, I don't have to take that. That's disrespect. But if you establish it up front and you say, look, you're going to get feedback because my job is to make you great.
I think as an industry, probably missing the boat on the onboarding, on the maintenance side, because, and I'll be perfectly honest, sometimes I'm sitting right across from someone that's looking at me like, hurry up, lady, and get my logins or, something like that. And maybe that goes back to the mentality of, like you said, just not wanting to admit that you don't know something, or wanting to be the one, especially on day one. You're supposed to be really you're supposed to impress us on day one, kind of, right? So like somebody might be coming into that process and saying, yeah, I got it. I've done this before. And, that kind of hasty start probably hurts both sides in a big way. So it's like, how do we dedicate, or just, we should dedicate some time to saying, but like, help me understand, when you said, choosing how to get feedback, or is this like meaning, tell me verbally, send me an email, have a regular meeting with me? Like, I don't even understand completely without you telling me.
Because
or is it more like abstract?
It's more abstract. Like, I don't need you to tell me what I did wrong. I already know that. So,
okay. So just tell you what you did right, and then you'll automatically deduce what you did wrong?
Okay. We may need to edit this part.
Nope, keep going.
Keep going.
Just give one example. Use one from yourself if you're comfortable. How do you want to receive feedback?
I mean, if I did something wrong and it created a problem to the point where my supervisor has to come and tell me that a problem happened, I'm already aware that the problem happened.
Okay. So
what we're going to do is we're going to discuss how we would avoid a mistake like that moving forward. Ways that, hindsight's 20/20. So looking back on it now, how could we have avoided it? Like, don't come and tell me the actual infraction. I know exactly what that is, and it stings when I have to relive it. So let's talk about how to prevent that moving forward. Let's talk about how to train others to not to see that coming, so that they can avoid having those issues. And again, without the diagram, it's okay. It's words and jargon.
Yeah, I just wanted to get in like an idea of it. I've also heard your speech many times.
Which one? I've got.
Sure, you do. You have a repertoire.
I do.
But they're good. I'm not saying that they aren't, but like I've heard the speech where you give that says, if I'm in my position, in my role,
if I'm the director and tasked with helping you get out of a jam, if I'm sitting here making the decisions that I'm making for the maintenance teams and all that, if I'm tasked with that, if I'm sitting here in this role and I don't know everything, there's no expectation that you know everything as a tech, as a supervisor, as there's no expectation that you know everything. So raise your hand and ask for help. you could call me and I could say, oh, I haven't dealt with that since 2006. I don't remember what I did the last time that came up. Let me look into it. Let me do some research. Let me phone a friend. I've been at the corporate level for a while. There are probably some new technologies that are out there in appliances and stuff like that that I don't work on every day that I could get you an answer to, but you'd be faster to call your fellows.
Didn't that happen just recently? Like the different, I think it was, like burners on a stove, right? Like you didn't.
I said that. I was like, when I was out in the field, we still had, burners and
no flat tops.
Yeah, we didn't have those.
Yeah.
So like I could come up with an answer, but it'd be quicker for me to be like, hey, call Bob over at Timbers, and he knows because he works on them every day. He's a whiz. Yeah. And so that would be, but at least if you didn't know to call him, I helped you. You didn't have to spend an hour chasing your tail. Yeah. You got a resource, but no, I don't know everything. I still go home at night and watch videos. I read, articles and listen to podcasts on, the future of HVAC. As nerdy as that is, like it's going to change. It's always changing, and it's one of the largest expenses in our operations if we don't know how to do the work ourselves. It will kill you if you can't do the work yourself. So
how do we incentivize someone doing that themselves? Like I know that this has come up between you and I before, like, is it that as an operator, we have to recognize that in order for us to save the big money, maybe we need to pay, maybe we need to share. We just need a win-win. We say that a lot here at Gray. Where's the way that everyone can win? So what's the win-win? Is the win-win with the maintenance teams that once they get that skill, is it that they, make more per hour, or is it that they then get to share in the savings? Like you go troubleshoot, you find a $2 part where we had a $6,900 quote. Like what could that, do you think that would work?
I learned a long time ago that in the back of the house, there's three types of people. There's three types of maintenance people.
In the back of the house.
In the back of the house. You're in the front of the house, I'm the back of the house. But in the back of the house, there's three types of people. You got parts changers. These guys, these people. No, you got your first person would be your check collector. That person does the absolute minimum just to stay employed. Oh. Path of least resistance, bad attitude, doesn't want to help. Just I'm here till 5 and then I'm out. The next person you have is a parts changer. This person's more enthusiastic. Willing to jump in there, doesn't have a whole lot of training, not raising hands to get some training, right? But winging it. This person will replace every part in the dryer until it works, and he's like, "Yep, got it, it's working." Well, you spent $400 worth of parts for a $550 dryer. I would say that's not a win today. No, it's not a win at all. So that's person number 2, and then the next person is a technician. And that person has training. He signed up to get CAMT. He's working with Ishmoorman and ACC Tech to get his associate's degree. He's on Interplay Learning. He's taking anything that the property management company, the manager, is willing to toss at him. He's learning as much as he can. And this is the person that is able to properly diagnose what's wrong with the HVAC system, repair or replace only what is necessary to get it back, and do it in a timely manner so that it's an efficient process. And
that probably feels good.
It feels really good. When I was when I was in the field, like the people that could do that type of work, they were proud. They wore that as a badge of honor, that they were able to properly diagnose and fix HVAC systems. And
let's go back to let's get patches, like Scouts of America, or any other sort of organization where you can kind of like earn something. Like let's go back to patches. Let's put some patches on the uniform that says like I can do this.
Funnily enough,
I can do a patch in less than 3 weeks.
Funnily enough, there are patches. So when we talk about EPA certified or certified techs, there's NATE certification, which is actually an HVAC certification. You have a lot of training that goes along with that. And one thing that I realized recently with Interplay Learning is that there's now a platform for you to get in there and do the training and also take the exams. So you actually get a NATE patch.
You're welcome, Interplay.
Yeah.
We're going to call you for sponsorship.
Absolutely. That if you want a certified tech, participate in programs that can actually get the team members certified.
Okay.
And then when that technician
actually certified,
right. And when that technician properly diagnoses the system and comes back and says, look, there's absolutely nothing we can do to fix this. It needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
The replacement cost is anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000.
Yeah.
But the equipment is $2,000, and I'd love to be able to install that. I mean, at that point, we just saved on a $7,000 system, we saved $5,000. That's easy math.
Recently, we had someone that
there should be some incentive to save a company anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000.
But we also just recently had someone that their portrayal of that whole situation was that they knew how to do it, but that they didn't get paid enough to do it. And so, but I asked you, I think that day I was like, Joe, how much did you make when you first?
I was making probably less than $13 an hour as a Tech 2.
Yeah.
23 years ago.
Less than $13 an hour and putting in systems.
I was nowhere near the lead tech, nor was I like the supervisor or anything. I was just taking the training. I wanted to be more tomorrow than I was today, than I am today, and I'm not gonna progress doing the same things that I did yesterday. I got to change it up. And so I was willing. I did that. I followed the people around that knew how to replace air conditioners, that knew how to properly diagnose them. I watched those guys, and I stayed late on my own time to make sure that I got my work done, but I was spending the time to get some training because I wanted to be that guy.
How do we get everybody to want to be the person that is like the hero? Be the hero.
Because I have no problem paying a really, really nice wage.
Yeah.
For someone who truly knows it inside and out and can fix them when they only need fixed and replace them when they need replaced and save a company money. That's worth something.
Is that pretty much? I mean, I know that
just telling me you can do it is not like
right. Or if you actually utter the words, "I don't need training." But then, we're looking at your financials and we're like, no, you do. You do. Well, it's because it's either training or initiative. And
so I meant to say this earlier, but we usually use a contractor outside of turning our apartments, reconditioning. We're always going to use, cleaners and carpet cleaners, so on and so forth. But outside of that, if to use a tradesman, mm-hmm. We usually use it for one of three reasons. We either don't have the equipment required for the job, and there's some equipment out there, heavy equipment. Right. We're just it's not
we don't have a wood chipper, so we're not going to be out.
We don't have an excavator. Yeah. We're not digging up the street and replacing, repairing a line underground.
But maybe you could use a mini excavator.
You could rent a mini excavator. I've done that before. Right. I was flexing that day. But it's not recommended. But so we
don't have the equipment.
We either don't have the equipment, we don't have the skill, or we don't have the time. And so the that's a no-brainer because I'm not going to get my company to spend $200,000 on a piece of equipment for one job. So we're going to use the contractor, take that out of the equation. So now we're down to I don't have the time or I don't have the skill. Now, if you don't have the time, now my 26th year in the industry, I know how much time we actually have out there in the field. And I'm not saying, I would never say that we're sitting around doing nothing.
No.
But I'm saying
truth is in the middle.
The truth is somewhere in the middle. There's probably some time management issues.
Yeah. Every time we have done a work study and quantified the time based on the work, because that's all it is. It's just work. It's not humans and hours. It's just work. Every time that we've quantified that, we start to feel really
feels one-sided.
Feels one-sided if we're down to, I mean, and how often were we over 2.2, 2.4 work orders a day for the whole team? Not even like, we're not talking 8 work orders per person per day. We literally were down to like where it was 1 to 2 work orders per person per day. And, you know, depending on the unit count, like, it's not like they're turning something every day. We're not turning 30 apartments. I mean, you can with volume. But.
So before I go into skill, let's touch on time. Again, I would have my team members tell me, man, you know, Joe, you've been in the field, man. You know that we're doing stuff all day long. We don't always have time to generate a work order for this or for that. Then you say, okay, well, let's put a device in their hand where they can generate a work order in real time right now. Miss Annetta just said, oh, by the way, this is also broken. And you're like, well, I don't have a work order for that, and I can't walk away from it, but I can't document this time. You can generate a work order right now in real time on your device, your handheld device, and walk away. So what happens is you start to tell them, okay, then when you're doing things that are additional, document it. Oh, now they want a log sheet. They want us to document 8 hours a day. No one ever said document 8 hours a day. I'm not getting 8 hours a day from anybody, regardless of what the situation is. But document as much as you can, because then when someone who's not in the field with you, is pulling a report, they're not saying, well, these guys combined have 12 hours of work this week that's done, but we're paying 120 hours in labor for this week for these 3 people. You don't want to be sitting there trying to explain or trying to help us figure out why you've only worked physically on paper 10% of the time that we paid you for. But it's one of those situations where it's like, oh, they're big brother. They want to know where I'm at every minute of every day. I don't have time to know where you're at every minute of every day. I'm not watching everything that you document. Yeah. But if it's there, if it lives there, then when someone who doesn't know what we do goes in and pulls a report, they're not coming to my desk saying, Joe, how come so-and-so over at such and such property has only has like, 26 hours worth of work documented in the last month? And I'm saying, well, look, they're real busy, but no, there's nothing I can say. We all look bad. So it's probably a time management situation.
It's profound. I mean, you just did that last week. You looked someone, you looked someone right in their eye and said, show me 24 hours of work today.
Today you're going to pay these 3 people.
There are 3 people. And, in this particular situation, it is not an old property. It's a very new, very beautiful, just gorgeous property. And certainly my experience and Joe's experience is on properties very similar to that. And so, if you came to work as a manager that day and you said, let's be graceful here. We don't have to say all 8 hours. What are you saying? 6 hours a day of productivity of documentable productivity.
6 hours should be easily to document.
6 hours. So 18 hours of work today. Show it to me. And I mean, when that was executed, everybody sitting around that kitchen island, because we were in a unit, was like,
yeah, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah, and then we also know there's 5 days in a work week.
We do know that.
Wow, let's look at that, and then the other piece of that follows up obviously is looking around and being like, look at all the stuff that's not getting done, and there's no legitimate reason behind it, and it's a very painful exercise for everyone. It's a very painful exercise.
Also, when you're saying, Joe, man, we could get all this stuff done if I just had some seasonal grounds help, or if I could just have one more maintenance technician on my team, I'd be able to get so much more done. And then the report says, actually, based on the work that you guys are turning in, I'm about to let one of you go. So, and we have always found a way to fix the numbers and get the productivity, but
right.
All jokes aside,
I think it was Mary. If you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean.
If you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
I don't know. I believe so. It was real funny.
But that's just it, and again, we don't want to be big brother. I don't have time. If I had 25 or 50 maintenance people, do I have time to actually go through each person's log every day to make sure they did 8 good hours worth of work? No, but if I pull on your property and it's an A+ portfolio and you got weeds that's growing crazy, you got trash barrels that are overflowing, you got pet stations that are just in bad disarray, we're not doing what we could.
Come on.
We're not doing what we could. And that goes back to that checklist.
Right.
That we hate to have. But if there was
the
path to success. But the last part of that would be the skill. And if we don't have the skill that the contractor possesses, we're going to need some help, because at the end of the day, Miss Annetta don't care what we know. She knows it's 100 in her apartment.
Yeah.
And these grandbabies are driving her crazy. And it's escalated because it's 100. So get in here and get it fixed. You don't care if it's in-house or a contractor, regardless. But if we don't have the skill to do it, then we're going to pay the price. And I can say in a situation like that, okay, so we might have to.
Yeah.
But where are you at? Aren't you standing there trying to learn something from the contractor? Because it doesn't make sense that you're over here.
That, but I mean,
you know what? A good partner should understand.
Yeah.
If that HVAC contractor understands that they're your partner, then they're going to make money in volume. They don't need to get rich on one job. And just because a maintenance person is standing there trying to learn, just trying to watch what you're doing to get a feel for, is this something I can even do? Mm-hmm. I can't take someone who doesn't know how to do HVAC work, go take them on one no AC call, and then when we're finished and we sign off that that's completed, that they're a tech that knows everything.
No,
so, not. But we have to find ways to learn.
Process, not an event.
Process, not an event.
Process, not an event.
So if it's equipment or time or skill, whatever it is, those are the reasons why contractors are on our properties. And so I've had situations where people are like, man, we don't need any training. Okay, well, let's go to the budget. Let's go to your variance report.
Let's hit your invoices.
Let's check your invoices and see how many times the plumber's been out here. Let's see how many times the electrician's been out here.
Yeah.
Let's see how many times the HVAC contractor's been out here. Oh, you don't need any training, right. So why are we giving all this money away?
But also, remember that one time when that was equipment. Like, if you're really boiling it down to being one of these three things that you need to identify. Remember, there was a plumber that was coming out regularly. It was like a $250, $300 service call or something like that. And the excuse or the reasoning from...
we don't have a big drain machine big enough to clear those lines.
Don't have equipment.
Well, for $700, we can get one.
Let's go.
So you spent that just this week.
Yeah.
On clearing drain lines.
I don't think... That's the other thing that, that you do that... I'm sure many people do once they get into a level where they have to, it's algebra. We do algebra every gosh darn day of our lives.
It's asset management. How do you keep from spending all the money in the back of the house that the front of the house just made?
Right. But weighing it out and saying, okay, time, skill, equipment. Well, this one's equipment. So here's this, because we know you've got time, and you didn't identify that necessarily there's any major skill involved with it. But also recently we had someone that, it was $6,000 to put in an AC. Mm-hmm. And, the response that was given as... We
don't have time to do that.
No, that one was equipment. That was like, I'll do it, but I don't have the tools. I asked for the tools and nobody approved the tools. So, of course, we approved the tools 5 minutes later. And then, that person, I think, quit.
That person quit before the equipment showed up.
Yeah, which might also be an indicator of this, that moment where they had to say, I don't know. Because they had already said, I can definitely do it. I just don't have the equipment. So it's I don't think we called that person's bluff with any intention. That wasn't it. The intention was, here's the tools.
The exact words I got was, I'd be more than happy to show off my skills if we possessed the equipment to make these replacements. And so I ordered it
verbatim?
all.
That's what was said?
I ordered it all. Sent the pick ticket to them, letting them know what all was on its way. Yeah. And a week later, we received a letter of resignation. So I would have been more than happy to go down there and put the first couple in with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't save them all. I don't know.
Can't save them all.
And having said can't save them all, we can't even, this is tip of the iceberg, I think, on some of the ideas that are flowing around, not how to fix maintenance, which is a funny juxtaposition, actually. How do we fix maintenance? Because maintenance is supposed to be fixing us. But, I think that we should have more conversations that are with the front of the house and the back of the house. And I think the honesty is important. And I know it's hard for you because, here you want to be a spokesperson in some regard and always be representing and sort of, fighting and understanding like what that job is. Because none of us know. I don't know. Remember, you used to always say, you'd be like, well, Katrina, is that how it was when you were in maintenance? Because I would act like I knew things, and I would say it as if it was, like fact, or as if I had lived it. And I certainly have never lived it. But, I think you navigate now in this weird space where you can be the voice, you can be the voice for them. It's not an us and them, but you can be that voice. But then also like you're looking at it and going, look, I know exactly what you do. I know exactly, how much time you have. And speaking from an owner's perspective and investor's perspective, like we're going to do this differently and we can do it better. But I feel like you play tug of war regularly with logic. We're playing tug of war with logic.
I do. It's tough. Owners and investors overall don't always know exactly what is entailed. And so sometimes there are these expectations and it's like, well, surely we can do this and we can do that. Can we do this, Joe? Yeah. And I'm, you don't want to say no. So the answer is yes, but here's how. Yes, but here's how. Yes, but because truthfully, anything's possible with time and money. It's just how much of each are you willing to spend. So
even sometimes when we're never resistant, we're ever non-compliant, or never insubordinate, but even sometimes where we would absolutely do something different than what an owner would, we have to remind each other, they aren't asking for us to say yes or no. They're asking for us to say how. How
exactly.
And then whatever those options, look like to get something accomplished. And I think that's where the algebra comes in. Like almost daily, I hear you do an analysis in your head of like, well, I can get it accomplished this way for this price, or I can get it accomplished this way for this, for this price, and, try to, I don't know, just make the best possible decision there. But you also speak owner investor language. And then you have to go against.
I do, and I have to. Owners and investors aren't going to sit in a meeting where I'm talking and sounding ignorant and saying off the wall things that make absolutely no sense. So I have to make sense. And obviously they're not in there, asking me physics questions, because that's not what we do. But in the back of the house, from basic entry-level maintenance all the way to construction, renovation, and preventative maintenance, to all of those, I'm looked at as the expert, because in 26 years I ought to be. And so,
true.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the difficult thing is to be able to take all of the conversations that are had with ownership and investors, and then translate that down. And I'm not saying dumb it down, but translate it to a language that I can take into the maintenance shop and say, guys, here's the plan. And they're looking at me like, man, there's no way in the world we can get all this done. Yes, we can, and here's how. And I'm here to help, and so on and so forth.
You say, that sounds like maintenance.
I say, that sounds like maintenance.
It's like we used to just have like CapEx lines, and then you had, or like in your budgets and, chart of accounts, you had like CapEx lines, and then everything else was, repairs and maintenance in turn. And it's like, now there's this whole other section we added for outside or contractor. And you're like, wait a minute, we didn't even have to have a section like that before, because in Joe's words, that sounds like maintenance.
That sounds like
maintenance.
We,
I always try.
Everybody tries to mimic my voice. Many try, many fail.
Maybe that's our next episode. Like, that sounds like maintenance. Like, like talking to and just reminding ourselves and teaching, maybe the, current managers, current regional managers, other maintenance supervisors, like there is a pretty reasonable line on what maintenance is capable of, what maintenance team members are absolutely capable of doing. Because I would say some have been raised in a different household, for lack of a better way of saying it, where it's like, we don't do that. We don't clean a dryer vent. No, that's not, we can't do ACs. We couldn't repair poly B.
Yeah.
We couldn't do, I don't know. Now this is where I just landed. Remember that time where I said, I say words that sound real good and like I know what I'm talking about, and then but like actually I don't.
I mean, I'm waiting.
How'd I do?
I'm waiting on A coil. Just say A coil.
A coil.
All right.
Flux capacitor.
Flux capacitor. So yeah, I definitely think that it's worth talking about. Because I would, there are things that are maintenance. and maybe I don't know, it could have just never been told to a maintenance supervisor or a manager, but if the system already exists and a component in that system fails, then what you do to fix that is maintenance. It's called maintaining the existing system. If I took a house and told you to build it with 2x4s, that's construction. I'm asking you to frame something brand new. Mm-hmm. If I'm asking you to wire this whole house up back to the panel, that's an electrician's job, because that's electrical design and installation. That's construction.
Yeah.
But if a switch, a plug, a light fixture in that system goes out, then you fix that. That's maintenance. Same with plumbing, HVAC. The HVAC system exists. There's a furnace or an air handler inside. There's a unit outside. It already exists. If that air conditioning unit goes out and needs to be replaced, that's maintenance.
Yeah, that's the thing that we don't.
So let's talk about it.
Right. We'll talk about it next time. It's like, and on the job description too, like that's the other piece that we're probably not communicating up front that we need to get better at, and like down to like almost tasks, because we have these like abstract bullets on job descriptions because people like me write a job description for maintenance. I'm not saying that you've never been involved, and certainly you have, and I like to think that we probably have created some really great things, but like somewhere it needs to be written down, not with pen and paper, but it needs to be written down. That's maintenance. That's CapEx or contractor work, and probably less is in the middle of that Venn diagram than what people would really think. And then we have to ask ourselves, if we aren't there, if we've got way too many things on this side, it's skill, time, or equipment to get to that side. But that is definitely a whole nother, and we've already been talking for well over an hour.
Oh Lord. My debut, and then I get canceled.
Yeah, I also actually...
Podcast was too long.
No, I also like... they'll speed you up anyway. They'll speed our voices up, I think. But I do like that you introduced everyone to Miss Annetta.
Oh, yeah.
In all the years I've known you, every example resident is always Miss Annetta.
Miss Annetta.
She has had a lot of issues over time, but also she's very grateful.
Yeah.
She's very appreciative. Thousands of
service requests I've done for Miss Annetta. She loves me. She sends me a card with $5 in it.
Yes.
I have to use it. I have to give it back to the property for a pizza party because I can't take bribes. It sounds like a bribe to get to the top of the list.
But goodness gracious. Well,
no.
Joe, I hope you'll be a repeat guest. I have
you'll have me.
Yeah, I have to be fully honest. I've recorded a few episodes already, and they're great. But the conversations that I've had before, while I think are fantastic, I wouldn't necessarily say that they are new, because there are a lot of voices on the front of the house side. There are a lot of voices on the vendor side, the tech, prop tech side. There are very few voices that I've ever heard that are, just representative of the people that are maintaining the asset preservation. And I appreciate that you joined me, and I know you're coming back. But just as Joe said, if you want to be a vendor for us, you have to follow the Gray Report and you have to follow the Complex. But honestly, would definitely appreciate if you like and subscribe and share it if something was profound, and if you feel so inclined and want your maintenance teams to hear some of this, so that way it's not coming from you, it's coming from someone that is an expert in the field and has done all of those jobs. I think that'd be great too. So we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.